It's Friday night. It's the preview show. It's the No Nay Never podcast.
Hello and welcome to the preview show from the No Nay Never podcast. I'm producer Matt, sitting in for Natalie this week as she's away throwing herself down the side of a snowy mountain. What people do for fun, eh? But I am joined as ever here in No Nay Never Towers by Statman Dave Roberts. Dave, hello, welcome along. How are you?
I'm very well, Matt. It's a pleasure to have you along. I think it's been a little while since we've had you on the podcast. I mean, obviously you've been involved with the editing every week, but it's not often we get you up front and hosting.
No, I tend to hide in the shadows and try not to spoil the sound of it with my not so dulcet tones, but needs must. And yes, I'm here just for this week. Maybe next week as well. See when Natalie gets back. So the lads got together last night. If you haven't already spotted that in your podcast apps, that there's a new analysis show came out last night, this morning. Richard and Tom and Adam got together to discuss the Liverpool match. Dave, what was your take on it?
I thought we played okay. We played pretty well. It's one of those that always a difficult side to play, Liverpool, and in the end it was a somewhat of a scrappy win for them. They got a scrappy goal. They made a couple of good saves. We missed a couple of good chances, and then they were time wasting for quite a lot of the second half. So it's Burnley get criticised for it. I think it's called game management when the big six do it, but it's time wasting when it's Burnley. But it's the same thing, really. And scrappy win, a dirty win, as Jurgen Klopp called it. They'll obviously be pleased to get the 3 points, but we were, consider ourselves a little bit unlucky we didn't get something out of the game, perhaps.
Absolutely, there was some real clear-cut chances, which is positive to see. Really, you wouldn't want to be kind of coming out of a 1-0 defeat and not really have had any really good attempts on their goal. Alisson was clearly the standout player for them, I think, at the weekend. But it's good stuff to take into Brighton, I think.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's the last 3 or 4 games we've been solid. Perhaps we've not been as creative going forward as we might be. We maybe need Maxwell Cornet to step up and score goals like he was before his injury, and then it might be a different matter in the next few games. We're going to have a tricky run of games coming up, but perhaps ones we're more likely to get points in than we were in the tough run of games we've had recently.
Yeah, I was thinking before, coming into these last 4 games, Arsenal, Watford, United and Liverpool, we've taken 3 points from them. It wouldn't have been a huge surprise if we'd lost against Arsenal, United and Liverpool, and if we'd beaten Watford, we would have come out of it with the same number of points. Somehow I don't know if it feels better, if it feels worse because of the performance against Watford in the first half against United, but mathematically we're kind of no worse off than if we'd lost 3 of them and won 1. It's strange, really, isn't it? How it can kind of affect your view of where the team is at.
Yeah, I mean, our season isn't going to be judged on how we do against the likes of Liverpool, but if we can get points out of those games, it helps. But we need some wins from somewhere. We've drawn far too many games. Need to find some wins, hopefully, starting with the match on Saturday.
Absolutely. But before we look ahead to Saturday's match at Brighton, we need to reveal the answer to last week's quiz question, which we set for you at the end of our Liverpool preview show. And it was a little bit of a stinker, I think. It was a little bit of a toughie, a real tester. The question was, against which teams did J. Rodriguez score his first league goals in English and Scottish football? What were those answers, Dave?
The correct answers were, in Scotland, the correct answer was Greenock Morton. We've actually mentioned he was on loan at Stirling Albion, and he scored against Greenock Morton. And in England, it was actually Crystal Palace. That was a tricky one. He'd already scored in cup games against Fulham. That was his first goal. He'd also scored in the League Cup against Spurs and also scored in the Cup against QPR. His first league goal was against Crystal Palace.
And did any of our listeners get this tricky question right?
Well, as you say, it was a toughie, I thought, although we did get some correct answers. Andrew Blythe got in touch to tell us that the Scottish team was Greenock Morton, although being a Clarets fan who lives in Scotland, that might have helped him slightly with that one. Bryn Jones also got Greenock Morton. I was in touch via email to let us know that, but once again, didn't get the English team right, and the only one to get both answers right, although perhaps with a little bit of help, was quiz regular John Robertson.
I'm going to stay completely out of the whole John Robertson Google brain thing that's going on. I'll leave that one for Natalie to judge when she gets back. So we will be setting, of course, another quiz question for you later in the show, but you'll have to stay tuned until the end for that. Meanwhile, we've got some history to look at, starting with our past Premier League away visits to Brighton.
Premier League head-to-head!
Yes, as one of their most famous supporters might say, Brighton have come a long, long way from the club that was homeless in the late 1990s and even had to play in Gillingham for a season, that was 70 miles away, before moving temporarily to the Withdean Stadium, before they finally found their new home. As well as being a relief for them, it's been something of a step up to visit the Falmer Stadium, which opened in 2011, and that's been sponsored by American Express ever since. Our paths have crossed in 4 previous Premier League seasons, and all 4 of these games have been played at Falmer. And remarkably, Burnley are unbeaten in these 4 away games there, with 3 draws and 1 away win. Our paths didn't cross in the Premier League until the 2017-18 season. Brighton took an extra season to gain promotion after narrowly missing out to Burnley and Middlesbrough in 2015-16, but they were eventually promoted as runners-up to Newcastle in 2016-17. In December 2017, we came away with a point in a goalless draw, although Brighton's Glenn Murray blazed a penalty over Nick Pope's crossbar during the first half. We went one better in February 2019 with a 3-1 away win. That was thanks to 2 goals from Chris Wood and an Ashley Barnes penalty. In September 2019, we rescued a point thanks to a late Jeff Hendrick goal. And then in November 2020, the 2 teams played out a rather forgettable goalless draw in a match which was played behind closed doors. With 5 draws and 6 defeats on the road in our 11 Premier League away games so far in 2021-22, could Brighton be the place where we eventually get that elusive first away win?
I really, really hope so. It would be a real big boost.
Memory match!
So, it's not one of those that you've picked, but which match have you picked this week for our memory match?
There was a temptation to revisit our 3-1 away win, that one we mentioned from February 2019, as this week's memory match, but we've decided to go back a little bit further to April 2016 in a vital match in the race for promotion from the Championship. Dale Stevens, who was of course playing for Brighton back then, opened the scoring for the home side after 30 minutes, but Andre Gray netted an equaliser 3 minutes later. However, the home side went into the break 2-1 up after a goal from Anthony Knockaert when his shot deflected in past Tom Heaton. The score remained 2-1, but we all thought Burnley had scored an equaliser with 2 minutes remaining. But in the days before goal line technology, the officials failed to spot that the ball was clearly over the line from Michael Keane's header. However, justice was eventually done when another header from Michael Keane from yet another Burnley corner crossed the line this time and hit the back of the net to earn a valuable draw and an away point to continue an incredible unbeaten run in the league, which had then stretched to 16 games. As we now know, that tally would eventually increase to 23 by the time we won the last match of the season at Charlton to confirm our status as Championship winners.
I don't think I've ever seen Phil Bird quite as angry before or since.
He's got Visa with him this week, hasn't he?
He has, yes.
Liam's with him co-commentating, so that'll be interesting. I did tweet Liam to tell him that as well as speak about the match, he needs to keep Phil calm.
Quite, yeah.
Part of the job description.
Yeah, absolutely.
On this day!
So, what has happened on this day in the past day when Burnley have played?
We're looking back to past matches Burnley have played on the 19th of February, the date of this match, and Burnley have only won 3 of the 17 previous matches we've played on this date. We didn't play a competitive match on the 19th of February until 1910. That was a 1-0 defeat at Oldham Athletic, and that was followed by 2 more defeats. The one in 1921 was a real shock. Burnley were in the middle of an unbeaten run in the league and would eventually be crowned champions of England. We had eventually go on and have a 30-match unbeaten run. That record stood for a long time. But we inexplicably lost 3-0 at Hull City in the FA Cup. And then in 1927, we lost another away tie in the FA Cup, this time 2-1 at Chelsea. There were just 2 more games on the 19th of February before the Second World War. We won an FA Cup 5th round replay, 3-0 at Nottingham Forest in 1935. That was our first win on this date. But we lost 3-1 at Stockport County in a second division game in 1938. By 1949, Burnley had risen back to the top flight, and we beat Chelsea 3-0 for our second of 3 wins on this date. Our only game on the 19th of February in the 1950s was a 1-0 defeat at Sheffield United in 1955, and for our only match of the 1960s, we drew 1-1 against Everton at Turf Moor. That was in 1966. There were further defeats at Birmingham City in 1972 and at Southampton in 1977, both by a 2-0 scoreline. 1979-80 was a tough season for Burnley, and we suffered yet another defeat to West Ham United, who visited Turf Moor on the 19th of February 1980. They came away with a 1-0 win, courtesy of a goal from Alan Devonshire. In 1983, we drew 0-0 at Crystal Palace. That was in the FA Cup 5th round, although we did go on to beat them in the replay. And then in 1988, we picked up our third and most recent win, as David Reeves scored the only goal for a 1-0 away win at Colchester. Since then, we've suffered 2 away defeats, losing 6-1 to Preston North End at Deepdale. That was in the Football League Trophy in 1991. Ronnie Jepson scored a first-half hat-trick in that match. And then we lost 3-1 in a league match at Leyton Orient in 1994. Our only 2 games on the 19th of February this millennium so far were both goalless draws. They were in league games and they were both at Turf Moor. The first of those was against Wigan Athletic, that was in the year 2000, and was Ian Wright's Burnley debut. And the other was against Middlesbrough in 2013. So to summarise, Burnley's overall record on the 19th of February is played 17, won 3, drawn 4 and lost 10, with 12 goals for and 15 against.
Excellent. So, in the second half of the season, we have introduced a new section called Battle of the Bosses. We decided to persevere with this section, and we introduced it last week. This involves us looking at the head-to-head record between the 2 managers. So, Dave, perhaps you can tell us a bit more about how Sean Dyche has fared against Graham Potter in the past.
This week we're going to take a look at the 2 managers, Sean Dyche, who is now in his 10th year as Burnley manager, and Graham Potter, who took over as head coach at Brighton in May 2019. He signed a 4-year contract with the Seagulls. There have been 5 games between the 2 teams since Potter took charge at Brighton, and all have been quite close. Although both the meetings at Brighton so far have been drawn, we've mentioned those already, Potter has had the upper hand in games at Turf Moor. Brighton have won 2 of those and drawn 1. So with Sean Dyche yet to mastermind a Burnley win in 5 attempts against his opposite number, he'll be hoping, as we all are, that this weekend will finally be the time he gets that elusive win.
As good a time as any. Okay, now that we've completed our look into the past, it's time to bring us back to the present day, starting with our scouting report.
Scouting report!
Yeah, Brighton, like Burnley, have kept faith with their manager, and based on them having picked up 33 points to date from 24 matches, you have to think they'll be considering themselves all but safe already. In addition to their summer transfer activity, they've brought in Polish midfielder Kasper Kozlowski and Belgian striker Denis Undav during the January transfer window. And they seem to be a team that casts its net quite wide to bring in players who've gone under the radar, but can usually do a job in the Premier League. Of course, we faced Brighton at Turf Moor on the opening day of the current Premier League season, and after taking the lead, we're unfortunate not to get something out of the game. They are currently in 9th place and will perhaps be looking to push even further up the table. Graham Potter has used a variety of different formations throughout this season. He started with a 4-1-4-1 in the reverse fixture, but he switched between having 3 or 4 at the back. Compared with most of the other teams we've played, I can't think of any others that have tinkered with their formation quite as much. Of course, some of this may have been due to player absences as a result of illness and injury, but for once it isn't particularly obvious how they might line up on Saturday, although they did revert to a 4-4-2 for their midweek match against Manchester United at Old Trafford, which they lost 2-0. What we do know ahead of this weekend's game is that central defender Lewis Dunk will be unavailable. He was sent off, perhaps harshly so, following a VAR review in the defeat at Old Trafford. And he'll miss out, as will Enoch Mwepu and Jeremy Sarmiento due to injuries. Although Alexis McAllister picked up a knock on Tuesday evening, he's expected to be available to play. Neil Maupay is Brighton's top goal scorer with 8 so far this season, and he also leads the way in terms of FPL points with 87. Behind him in second place is the goalkeeper Robert Sanchez, and in third place is Mark Cucurella.
Well, you've heard our thoughts about our visitors, but for balance, we try and bring you an opposition view every time, and this week it has been kindly provided by Joshua Goldsmith from the TogetherBHA fan channel.
Opposition view.
Hi guys, this is Josh with TogetherBHA. Thanks for having me on. I just want to respond to some questions that you all sent over about the game this weekend, Brighton-Burnley, at the Amex. Just a couple of questions that you threw over here. How well things have gone for me, or Albion this season, of course. I think this has been an excellent season for Brighton. I mean, unparalleled, especially in my lifetime, right? We've never had a season this good. We're looking at possibly breaking our best ever positional record in the top flight in our history this year. So I think it's safe to say that things have gone just about as well as you could hope they would. Didn't spend a huge amount of money in the summer. We let go of Ben White, which hasn't really hurt us too much at all. Made a great sum back for Dan Burn as well. You'll know all about that with Chris Wood. And yeah, I think the season's gone incredibly well so far. Zero complaints. Where do I realistically see ourselves finishing? This is a really tough one. I've heard a couple of commentators as we play these recent weeks talking about our push for Europe. Definitely don't think we're there yet. I would absolutely be over the moon with where we are now in 9th or 10th place. I think that would be outstanding given the budget we work on, especially our wage budget. We're 16th in the league on wage budget. That generally that reflects in the table, but not currently. So I would take mid-table. It's nice to be in February and not worrying about relegation for the first time in 5 years. So anywhere in that mid-table grouping would be lovely. If we can make a push for one of those, Mickey Mouse European competition places, the Conference League or whatever it is, certainly not going to turn it down. But I don't think that we're quite there yet. And this summer is going to be an odd one with possible outgoings. So take that mid-table place and move on and strengthen in the summer. In terms of Potter and what his approach to Saturday's game is going to be, I suspect that it's going to be a bit of necessity more than anything else. Tariq Lamptey, I'm almost guaranteeing, will start because he came on as a sub later on. Trossard will probably start as well. He went off early as a sub against United midweek, as did Maupay, so I would expect them both to start. My big issue, obviously, is Lewis Dunk's suspension. Obviously, we're not going to be playing him. We don't have Dan Burn. So I suspect we may well see a partnership of Adam Webster and one of Veltman and Duffy in that back line, depending on how we want to play things. We may well go with a 3 at the back, in which case we'll see all 3 of them. Or we may well see a 4 at the back with one of them on the bench. It's really, really tough to predict Graham Potter's lineups because they're different every week. He is just unbelievably inconsistent with his choices. He tailors his lineup to every game individually, so it's really tough to call. And then the final 2 things, what, if anything, is my fear from Burnley? Weghorst. I said on the podcast for TogetherBHA this week after the Manchester United game that he scares me greatly. He's a very big lad, strong, and looks like he's got a tidy touch on the ground. I know there's been some injury concern there. It looks like he may feature. If he does, I think we're going to be in big trouble. I think he's going to cause a problem for anybody in this division. It looks like he's a very good player, and again, money well spent from Burnley. I think you've done a great job there with him and Maxwell that you signed in the summer. The money you spent to the talent you brought in, I think is great. And then finally, score prediction. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that we have enough to win it. But whether we do or not is very tough to call. I'm going with either a 0-0 or 1-0 to Brighton. Really not sure which one it's going to be. But I'm going for 1-0 or 0-0. Burnley playing away. That despite you being quite poor this year, you play in a way that is very difficult for Brighton to break down with the current offensive talent we have. So I'm going to go with 0-0 or 1-0, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks again to Joshua for giving us his thoughts ahead of Saturday's match. So Dave, finally, who is going to be our referee on Saturday?
We've got Kevin Friend of Leicester. He's going to be the referee for the game on Saturday afternoon. He was in charge at Turf Moor back in October. That was for our 0-0 draw against Norwich City, and that was his only other Burnley game this season prior to this weekend. For awarding a highly dubious penalty to Liverpool in their match at Crystal Palace in January, he was banished to the Championship for a couple of matches, but he was back last week to take charge of the Premier League match between Spurs and Wolves. The first time he refereed a Burnley game was way back in 2005, when he took charge of a Championship match at Turf Moor against West Ham United. And we've seen him regularly over the years, racking up 29 games in the middle, making this one his 30th. Our overall record in those games is 1-9, drawn 6 and lost 14, although we have 5 wins from his previous 18 Premier League games. And finally, for this section, Peter Banks will be the video assistant referee.
Statman Dave's Stat of the Week!
Well, we're not going to leave it there because I know you like to treat our listeners, Dave. So why don't you delve deep into your bank of stats and treat us all to this week's Stat of the Week?
This week I just want to talk about Burnley's status really, and the what we're going to need to get ourselves to safety. There has been quite a bit of discussion about how many points Burnley might need to be clear of the bottom 3 places this season. Although there are some fans who might have given up hope already, I firmly believe that with 17 games remaining, there's still plenty to play for. Although it's often said that a notional target of 38 points, 1 point per game, usually ensures survival, it can vary quite a bit from season to season. Others quote a target of 10 wins across the season, assuming that several draws in addition to that would be enough for safety. However, West Bromwich Albion survived with 34 points in 2004-05, and they only won 6 games all season. They drew 16, whereas in other seasons, like 2009-10, 31 points would have actually been enough to steer clear of the bottom 3. In truth, there are no guarantees, and even 40 points isn't certain to get a team to safety. And so we probably need to just take things a game at a time, as there's very little we can do to control results elsewhere. But remember, although there aren't any must-win games at this stage of the season, despite what some people might say, we must start to win some games very soon, as draws aren't going to be good enough to keep us in the league. And we'd quite like to maintain our proud record and stay in the Premier League next season and beyond.
So, Dave, you don't like the term must-win. Is Saturday another must-not-lose? Or with this season, with Brighton being so far away from us in the table, do we view that in the same way that we view our matches against the top 6? Are we more concerned about the matches coming up against the teams that are around us in terms of taking all 3 points from those?
If you look at it like that and say, we have to get, let's say, another 6 or 7 wins, those are more valuable if you get them against teams around you. So that stands to reason. But you can't really control that too much. You want to get the points from wherever you can get them. And Brighton is an opportunity. We do have a decent record down there. We haven't lost in 4 Premier League games. We've won 1 and drawn 3. They are a bit of a draw specialist as well. So, maybe the sensible money this weekend might be on a drawn game, but we need to take it above and beyond and try and get a victory. It's no games are easy in the Premier League, no away games in particular are easy, but Brighton perhaps is easier than some of the games we've had. We have picked up draws on the road. We just haven't been able to convert any of them to wins so far. And we're going to have to get some wins from somewhere. So, yeah, why not start on Saturday?
Yeah, I know the lads were talking on the analysis show about these next few games we've got all being winnable, really. Though, there's no reason why we couldn't be seeing some wins if we can finish off some of the chances we're creating. Brighton, whilst they're potentially chasing that elusive seventh spot, like you say, they are a draw specialist. They've only won 7 games this season, but they find themselves sitting only 4 points off that potential European spot, dreaming in a way that we did a few years back. And then with matches coming up against Spurs, who could be seen to be having a bit of a wobble at the minute, and Leicester, who haven't found the same form as they might have found earlier in the season. Yeah, but you're right. We're now at that point where our games in hand wouldn't make us safe if we won them. We've drifted away a little bit now, and it's not completely in our hands. But yeah, time is ticking. Games are coming thick and fast, and wins are needed, whichever way you look at it. We can't take draws from the next 4 games and expect to be any closer to safety than we are now, I don't think. Do you think Kieran Trippier's injury will affect Newcastle greatly, or do you think they've still got enough quality that they've brought in and momentum that they've generated to start to pull away, Dave?
I think it's a blow for them because it was improving their all-round play and he was scoring goals. The injury he's got a broken metatarsal that can take quite a while to heal. I think on average they reckon he might be back maybe early May, which means he could be back for the last couple of games of the season, potentially playing us on the last day of the season. But yeah, I think it will be a blow to them. I mean, they have brought other players in as well, and maybe they have got that momentum. They've won their last 3 games, haven't they? So that has just taken them away a little bit. And perhaps you look more to the likes of Brentford. Brentford are on an awful run. We do play Brentford. That's one of our next 5 games. That's the 5th game after we play the games that you mentioned, and Leicester and Crystal Palace. We do play Brentford. That is an away game. But again, that's probably more of a must-win in terms of being able to catch them up, assuming that they continue their poor form. I mean, they could get a couple of wins, and that would make them a little bit safer. And then you're thinking more about the likes of Leeds, who've struggled, and Everton, who've been patchy. But again, you can't think too much about their games. You've got to just concentrate on our games and try and get some wins on the board. A couple of back-to-back wins would make a big difference. As you say, it wouldn't get us to out of the bottom 3, but it would make things a lot more competitive for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we are a team that can go on a run once we get going, and now would be the perfect time for that to happen. I think to invoke the spirit of previous seasons where we've gone maybe 5 or 6 games or 7 games unbeaten. That would really do us no harm, really, and really claw us back to that 17th place, which is realistically the best I think we can hope for, really, this season. We just want to get above that bottom 3. If we do go down, Dave, how much of an impact do you think that would be? I mean, obviously there'll be a financial impact in some ways, and there'll be players that leave. Do you think we'll lose more players if we go down than if we stay up, or do you think the vast majority would stick with us, and maybe the players who we might lose this summer, even if we stay up, will just be the ones that we see go?
I think it's hard to tell, really. I mean, we know that, like with Chris Wood, there was a clause in his contract, and that obviously triggered, and there may be similar clauses in other players' contracts. We know that Tarky's out of contract at the end of the season, so he's more than likely going to go. There are plenty of other players out of contract as well, so that'll have a bearing on things. But again, I think we still have 17 games to play. We have to remember that we are only just over halfway through the season. So it's one of those where you kind of have to have the thought in the back of your mind, but not let it worry you too much until a little bit further down the line. But just try and be wary of the situation. And what will be in some respects. But I think we have got players who would stick with us. And I think there are others who would be more saleable assets who may need to be sold to bridge that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming back to the Brighton game, then let's have a little score prediction. How do you see this one panning out? They've obviously, you mentioned they've got a Dunk missing. He got suspended, didn't he? Maybe that's something that Burnley will be able to exploit with Weghorst. If they've got someone else coming in, but they've also got a good ability to punish us, don't they? They've got some top players, MOTM you've mentioned. So, what's your prediction for this weekend, Dave?
I'm torn between thinking it's going to be another draw and then thinking, yeah, it might just be our turn to sneak a win. So I'm going to be positive. I'm going to go for a 2-1 away win, 2-1 to Burnley.
Oh, and do you have scorers?
I think Maxwell Cornet is going to score one, and I think, assuming he's playing, if it looks like he is listening to the press conference, I think Wout will get his first goal.
Marvellous. That'd be great to see. I think, I think we might be able to get a win as well. I think I'll go for a win. And I think it'll be tighter. I think it'll just be maybe a classic Burnley 1-0. And I also think it'll be Wout. I think he's ready for that first goal now. I think he's shown he's getting closer and closer with each match. And they've had the full week off now. And yeah, I think Wout will get one for us and we'll win 1-0.
Fantasy Premier League update.
So on to the Fantasy Premier League. Brighton's game against Manchester United on Tuesday was the final match of Gameweek 25, so we're now able to bring you some FPL updates, starting with the latest league table and the current standings in the race for February's Manager of the Month.
We weren't able to bring any league updates last time, so we're going to run down the current top 10 as at the end of Game Week 25. So we've got in 10th place our very own Adam Dennett. He's slipped slightly, had a very good January, but he's slipped down to 10th place. It is very tight at the top. In 9th place is Ursay. In 8th place, Chris Stanworth. 7th is Jack Toner. 6th is Brodie Robinson. And then a climber, someone who's done very well previously, Tall Paul, is up to 5th place, making a late run. Jacob Satwells in 4th. Jaden Fitton in 3rd. In 2nd place is Luke Lambert, but way out in front, got a lead of 31 points now, is Joe Elliott, who's been at the top for quite a while. He's on 1,637 points, leading the way for the season to date. And if we want to look at February, I'm going to give you a top 4 for February, because the 3rd and 4th are a joint 3rd in actual fact on 164 points. They are Christopher Swarbrick and Angel Delgado. They're both on 164 for February. In 2nd place is Chris Stanworth on 167. In fact, it's joint first. Chris Stanworth and Jonathan Ball both have 167 points for February. So it's very tight at the top for our February Manager of the Month. And who's going to get that much coveted No Nay Never sticker?
Absolutely, yes. I sent Adams out in the post this week, so I expect to see that stuck up on the wall behind him next time we record with him. What's happened in our mini league for the No Nay Never team then, Dave? Anything?
Not a great deal, to be honest. I'd be very surprised if any of us can catch Adam Dennett. He's way out in front. You're actually down in 4th place, Matt, at the moment, behind George in 3rd. But you're still well ahead of Natalie, as you have been since well before Christmas. So we're going to skip this section again until there's anything of note to report.
Yeah, I've struggled a bit recently. It's slightly better this week, but I'm not quite sure. Not kind of found the the key to unlocking a few more point sets. So I'll have to have a think about that with some of these doubles and blanks coming up. I might go back and listen to Adam's bit of advice from last week and see if that's any use. Okay, then, what can you tell us? Who is in this week's Team of the Week for Game Week 25?
Well, yeah, we do like to keep you up to date with the latest Team of the Week, and here are the best performing players from the round of matches which has just finished. The team was organised in a 4-5-1 formation. We actually had Brentford's goalkeeper, Raya, in goal. Our defenders, our back four, were Webster of Brighton, Coleman of Everton, Michael Keane also of Everton, and Lamptey of Brighton, so a couple of Brighton defenders in there. Our midfield was Sterling of Manchester City, Gordon of Everton, Dendoncker of Wolves, Jared Bowen of West Ham United, and Jadon Sancho of Manchester United. And then up front on his own was Cristiano Ronaldo. The highest scoring player overall for Game Week 25 was Manchester City's Raheem Sterling, who got 18 points.
Yeah, I think the double game week for Brighton and Manchester United boosted a few of those players into there, didn't they? So I think we'll need to find something else for our FPL section for the next couple of shows, as Game Week 26 is a double game week and continues on until the Thursday, the 24th of February. That means when we record our Spurs preview show, as well as the one for a trip to Crystal Palace, the tables won't have been updated. But we'll get our thinking caps on here at No Nay Never Towers, and we'll try and find something else FPL related to bring you instead. If you are one of our top 10 managers and you are listening and you want to come on and give away a little bit of hints and tips without spoiling your chances, then you're more than welcome. Just get in touch in the usual ways.
Statman Dave's quiz question.
So, all that's left is our quiz question of the week. Dave, what have you got for us this week?
Quiz question. We mentioned earlier that Brighton had played at other grounds before they moved to their new stadium in 2011. After leaving the Goldstone ground in 1997, they even had to play at Gillingham, that was over 70 miles away, before they moved to the rather unsuitable Withdean Stadium. That was the one with the big athletics track around it, and you were miles away when you were trying to watch the game. And that's actually the focus of this week's quiz question, which is: which Burnley players scored our first and last goals at Brighton's Withdean Stadium?
How can people submit their answers if they think they know?
You can get in touch with us to let us know the answer using any one of these methods. You can tweet us, or preferably send us a direct message on Twitter. That's at No Nay Never. You can email us to the dedicated email address we've got set up, which is previewshow@nonaynever.net. Or you can also reply to the post for this preview show on either the No Nay Never Facebook page or on YouTube.
And because the matches are coming thick and fast, so are the preview shows. So you'll have to be quick again with your answers to this one, as there isn't long before we sit down and record our preview for our home game against Spurs. We will be recording that either Sunday or Monday evening. So if you think you know the answers, get them in sharpish. Do we have any community news this week, Dave?
Just a couple of quick ones from me this week. Firstly, well done to David Ellis. He was the winner of the Twitter competition, which we ran with Matthew J.I. Wood Design to win a Turf Moor print. That should be on its way to you, David, as we speak. Well done again. And remember to follow our social media channels for more competitions in the future. And also a reminder that this season there's also a weekly No Nay Never newsletter. You can visit nonaynever.substack.com. That's nonaynever.substack.com to read and to subscribe.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's all we've got time for on this week's preview show. Just need to thank everyone who's been involved in this, to Joshua Goldsmith from TogetherBHA for providing us with an opposition view, to Turf Moor's stadium announcer Dominic Walker for his specially recorded preview show announcements, to Statman Dave for researching and providing all the stats and facts for our preview show episodes, and last but by no means least, thanks to you, the listener, for taking the time to join us for this episode. Your support is very much appreciated, and we most certainly would not be here without you. As I said at the top of the show, the lads did record an analysis show this week, which is out, so there's plenty for you to listen to if you're making your way down to Brighton for Saturday's match. Safe journeys if you do. Hopefully Storm, what's her name, will have passed over and it'll be a calm journey there and back for you. I've been producer Matt. This has been the preview show from the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.